What's up, guys? It's TechnoViking23 coming to you today with a little bit of commentary about Destiny, Destiny 2, and the Destiny franchise in general. Now, this is a video I have thought about making for a long time, but I've kind of hesitated and held back, mainly because it's such a negative video, and lately, as I've kind of moved into my new place and been back to my Warframe series, I'm really more about trying to be positive on YouTube and make a positive impact on players and things. And it's just every time we talk about Destiny, it's such a negative topic because there's really not much positive to say about the franchise in general, especially with Destiny 2's lackluster release and the way Bungie continually just doesn't seem to care about its community or its gamers. And so that's one of the reasons I've kind of refrained from making this video. But after this recent week with a lot of the Curse of Osiris DLC information coming out and just continually witnessing this behavior, I just can't really stay silent on it. I've got to say something. I'm just at that point. And what we're going to be talking about today is how the influence and the overall attitude of the majority of the big Destiny YouTubers is not a positive thing for the franchise going forward, and how their influence in coverage of the game is actually going to have a negative effect on the overall quality of Destiny as a franchise. And we're going to make some comparisons to some other games and just talk about a few things here and there. But the first thing I wanted to say is that I understand this is kind of a blanket statement, and I want to be sure that I mention that there are several Destiny YouTubers that I think are very, very good at what they do. They put out quality content, especially the guys who do a lot of the lore videos, because obviously, as we know, there's not a lot of lore in the actual game. However, Destiny has a very fascinating lore behind it, if you've read through all the Grimoire and understand what's going on with the background of the game. And there's several YouTubers who do a really, really good job of bringing that to life and make some very high-quality videos regarding the lore of Destiny, and they're a lot of fun to watch and listen to those. There's also a few Destiny YouTubers who actually will dare to criticize Bungie at times and, are halfway decent at doing it. And then there's also a handful of YouTubers who generally seem to actually enjoy Destiny and the content the game has to offer, and they do try to foster a positive community around the game, and that's something I'm never really going to hate on. What I'm really talking about in this video are the major Destiny YouTubers, and I'm sure a lot of you already know who they are, who refuse to ever criticize Bungie, who refuse to ever say anything negative about Destiny. Every time they make a video about the game, it's this massive hype train. It's all sunshine and puppy dogs and rainbows, and they just refuse to admit there are any issues at all with Destiny. There are also the YouTubers, several of them, hilariously enough, have jumped onto the Star Wars Battlefront bandwagon. I've even seen some of them defending EA, talking about how microtransactions aren't that big of a deal, which really is not a shocker since they support them in Destiny as well. And just in general, they support bad business practices. They foster a negative environment of complacency where they're basically just telling their subs, you don't need to question what the developer is doing, you just need to support them. And I just think this is really awful, and it's really going to be bad long term for the state of the franchise. In a similar vein, if you take a look at Call of Duty, Call of Duty was once a pretty decent franchise. I'm going to go back to the days when I played Call of Duty primarily versus other games. That would have been back with COD 4, Modern Warfare 2, and to some extent Modern Warfare 3. It's about that point for me that Call of Duty just became a really tired and stagnant franchise, and I kind of got sick of playing it and gave it up for the most part. Now, I did take a look at some of the other entries in the series after they'd come out and they were cheap and on sale, but it never really managed to capture me like it did early on. The campaigns in Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 were absolutely incredible to me. They were even better than what's in Destiny. I think that it's pretty sad that the campaign in a Call of Duty is much better than Destiny, which is in this massive open sci-fi universe that would be pretty cool. But I really enjoyed the campaigns in Modern Warfare 2 and 3. I enjoyed the multiplayer for the most part. The PvP was pretty good, and I spent quite a lot of time in it. I think I prestiged 7 or 8 times in both games before I just got tired of re-leveling up weapons and unlocking weapons, so I just kind of stayed at my prestige level. But overall, I had a really good time playing both Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. Now, the Call of Duty series has largely become stagnant over the last several entries. It's the same rehashed stuff every time. It's the same game engine. It's the same $60 crap where they don't really give you much content, and the DLC and the microtransactions now that have plagued it. And what you see in Call of Duty is a lot of their YouTubers are completely complacent with the state of the game. There are a few of them who have gotten large enough to where they have a big enough subscriber base to where they can actually kind of call out Activision and go after them for some of their bullcrap. But for the most part, a lot of them are very loyalist and they refuse to criticize, which really is unfortunate, because when you have a game series like this, a franchise, it can easily become stagnant and it can easily become bad because of that. Whereas if you have people who are willing to call out a game for its weaknesses and talk about how it could be improved, you actually have the potential for growth and development that could lead to a much better franchise. And one of the other things that Activision does, which we've seen with Destiny and with Call of Duty, is they are very, very sensitive and very, very protective of their product. They do not like criticism at all. And one of the things they do is if they feel like someone is not giving them enough positive praise, someone is actually criticizing their product, they will remove them from their list of people they allow to get exclusive content for that game. And we've seen this in a very obvious fashion with Destiny, and I've brought this example up in other videos. But Angry Joe, who is one of the more popular YouTubers, although his popularity has waned a little bit the last year since he's gotten in a couple spats with his subscribers. But overall, I still like Angry Joe's content. I still really enjoy his video reviews that are very creative and he does a really good job on. And he is one of the last few brutally honest reviewers who will say what he really thinks about a game. And it's really funny because if you look on Angry Joe's channel from way, way, way back when Destiny was first in its developmental stages, he was actually one of the first YouTubers who was invited to Bungie Studios in Seattle to check out the game. And he's got some vlogs on it, he's got some gameplay. He's actually shows up in that video with Dado, who's one of the more popular Destiny YouTubers now. And oddly enough, it's kind of funny because he was one of those initial 4 or 5 YouTubers who got to go check Destiny out. And he's never been back since. You haven't seen him featured with any of Bungie's community things. He's never been back to review any of the DLCs or to check out any of the early capture events with a lot of the other Destiny YouTubers. And given his size and popularity on YouTube, you'd think that's a little odd. And I always felt it was because when Angry Joe did his Destiny review, he pretty much gave it a scathing review. He called it out for all of its shortcomings, and he actually gave a very brutally honest review of the game that was spot on, in my opinion. And Bungie didn't like that. Activision didn't like that, so they essentially cut him off from the game. And that was something I always believed had happened to him. Now, when he did his Destiny 2 review, he actually highlighted this a little bit, and he mentioned that was one of the reasons. And in addition to that, he did a little skit at the end of his Destiny review where his corporate commander character was jumped and basically had the crap beaten out of him, where he was playing the role of Bungie at the end of the video. Well, Joe said that apparently the people at Bungie were concerned that he was directly threatening them with physical violence through the end of that video, which I found utterly hilarious. But I can kind of relate to that just being how sensitive Bungie are. They're a very arrogant group now. They're not the same Bungie that made the Halo series and fostered a really amazing community around a game. They're now a bunch of kind of arrogant little jerk faces who have really taken full on to Activision's influence and just really enjoy milking people for their money. And Luke Smith is one of the worst. He's an absolute arrogant jerk. He was actually back in the Halo days too, but he didn't quite have the role he does now with Bungie, where he's got a lot more responsibility and is responsible for a lot of what you see in the game. And I think it's hilarious because I used to openly criticize Bungie on Twitter, and I would often tag their developers, their individual developer pages. And it's not like I was saying anything super negative or that wasn't obvious about the game that needed fixed. But Luke Smith decided to block me on Twitter, which I thought was hilarious because I'm like, I'm a nobody, okay? I'm no one on Twitter. I have like 30 followers. No one is really following me and being influenced by what I say and my words on Twitter. So I kind of found it interesting that Luke Smith was so sensitive about criticism that he had to block such a small influence on the internet. it just blew me away. But the more and more I see about Bungie and their developers and these guys, it just becomes more and more obvious how painfully sensitive they are to criticism and how they just want everything to be sunshine and rainbows with their game. It's aimed at a younger audience, a more gullible audience that they can control and kind of influence with what they say and influence through the people that back them up on YouTube. And that's what gets me to kind of the main point of the video, is these YouTubers who just continually buy into it. They continue to hype Bungie's bullcrap. Every time we see a new DLC come out, they're already online talking about how amazing it's going to be, how they played it, and it's so great and it's so good. And we've suffered through this for 4 years now, and as I like to talk about with Bungie, you have to look at the track record. Okay, the track record doesn't change. They overhype their DLCs every time. Their DLCs are nowhere worth $25 or $30 as they sell for. You more likely get about $10 worth of content that you're going to blow through in a day or two. There's really no substance to it. There's no narrative value to it. It doesn't add anything good to the story or the universe. The weapons are usually all reskins. The maps are normally maps that already exist that you run backwards. They just reuse and recycle as much content as they possibly can and try to get full price for it. There's not a lot of value in it for the player. But Bungie's army of YouTubers will have you believe that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. They'll talk about how it's making all these amazing changes to the game and all these groundbreaking changes to the game, when in fact the game largely stays the same stagnant, boring, repetitive thing over and over and over again. And when you bring it up, it's funny, especially with the release of Destiny 2. A lot of people have been complaining about Destiny and how the game has just become so stagnant, and it's not even as good as the first game. And you hear the excuses over and over. Oh, well, you can't compare it to vanilla Destiny. It's a new game. Oh, you're just an entitled gamer who thinks they should have everything. And that's what they say over and over, and they continue to defend Bungie. Well, the fact is, Bungie had 3 years to get Destiny where it was. And I think towards the end of Destiny's life cycle, it was actually a pretty solid experience. Now, instead of carrying that over, for some odd reason, they chose to start all over again with Destiny 2, which is a very poor decision. And at the same time, they had 3 years plus of development experience under their belt, actually more than that, since they were working on Destiny as far back as the Halo Reach days and the Halo ODST days. And yet they have this excuse where, oh, it's a new game and we have to start all over again and we're finding our way again. And their YouTubers just back them up on this, which baffles me completely. I don't understand it. And this is just not going to foster a positive environment for the game where it can grow and develop into something better than mediocre, which shouldn't be too hard for it. But like I said, they're just complacent, and one of the things is they have such a massive influence. You go to a lot of these channels, they've got 400, 500,000 subscribers, they've got 1 million subscribers in some cases. And this is largely a very young and gullible audience who can have their opinions influenced and shaped by people they think are popular on the internet. So what in turn happens is you get this massive army of what I call the Desticles, or the Destiny fanboys, who refuse to admit there's any problem at all with Destiny. As I've said before in the past, if you enjoy Destiny and like the game, that's great, but just be objective about it. If you're one of those people who just defends the game to the death and white knights for Bungie, then I have a problem with you, because you're obviously incapable of seeing some of the faults in the game, and you're preventing the game from becoming something better or achieving its full potential. And that's kind of the way I feel about all these Destiny YouTubers. But when you have all these mostly kids, these younger people who are listening to this all the time, these several 100,000 people, these millions of people who are influenced by what they hear from someone they think is a popular person on the internet, then you just create an entire fan base that's complacent and willing to back the developer up on whatever they do. And a lot of these YouTubers will have you believe that you can't influence the decision. You should just be positive all the time. You can't offer negative criticism. If you want to criticize them, you should be very positive about it and just blow sunshine up the developers. But, well, this is clearly not the case. If you guys have been paying attention to any of the stuff going on with Star Wars Battlefront lately, and the fiasco that happened with EA and DICE and bringing out the microtransactions and the pay-to-win model that existed in the game, a lot of people complained and a lot of people got really upset and up in arms about it. And a lot of the loyalists, of course, said, you're not going to make any difference, it's not worth it, you're just crying about nothing, it's my business how I spend my money, microtransactions are no big deal. But that's not the case. As we saw the other day, they actually backed off and said they were eliminating any items you could buy in the game. Now, they did say it was temporary, which worries me. But the fact is they changed it. At least for now. The people who got upset, the people that criticized it and offered the criticism, they made a difference in the game. Even if it is temporary, it's a difference, and it's a big difference. And to see a company actually back off of a microtransaction strategy because they got such a negative backlash is pretty darn impressive, in my opinion. Now, if this was Destiny, you would never see this happen because there's such this influence about how they have to stay positive all the time and they can't criticize anything. But this just goes to show you that if you are a constant loud voice and you speak with your wallet and you speak with your objective words about how something is bad, you can affect a positive change in gaming. The Destiny YouTubers would have you believe that's not possible, but don't listen to them. And like I said, they have just these hundreds of subscribers that they're able to influence, who in turn buy the game blindly, who in turn don't care about the fact that they're getting jobbed out of their hard-earned money. Which I try not to tell people how to spend their money, but when you look at the value of what you get for your money in Destiny, you're not getting a good return on your money. And I understand, yeah, these companies got to make money, but they can do it in a more honest fashion, which doesn't mean ripping out chunks of a game and reselling it as DLC when it should have come out at release, and all the other just ridiculous things Bungie has done over the lifespan of Destiny. So that's just the thing, I think as long as these YouTubers are around, as long as they continue to, just constantly push out these positives about Destiny, you're not going to see anything really change, because the developers don't have to change when they have such a large group of people that continually support them and continually buy their game at full price, buy the DLC, buy the season pass, pre-order the game, etc., etc., which is continually influenced by these major YouTubers for Destiny. And the problem with that is what we see with Call of Duty, where there's so many pre-orders every year, the company has already made back their budget before the game even comes out, oftentimes halfway through the development cycle. And at that point, they can just kind of say, oh, hey, guess what? We've made all our money back. What's the point in finishing the game? The rest of the stuff we're going to make is just going to be DLC that should have been in there at launch, and we'll just sell it later down the road for 30 or 40 bucks. And that's unfortunately the business model you're seeing from a lot of AAA companies, and unfortunately they get away with it because so many consumers just don't care and are influenced by what they see online, and they just continue to buy at full price. They continue to pre-order, and this is just an epidemic that is plaguing AAA titles recently. Call of Duty has become a completely stagnant franchise. It's an awful franchise. Nothing has changed in the game in 10 years because nobody wants to say anything about it. And if any of the YouTubers stand up for it, they just get banned by Activision or don't get access to that exclusive content. And, from there, I do understand that to an extent. You see a lot of these Destiny YouTubers now, they're getting these unboxing videos where it's essentially, hey, we sent you a $2,000 laptop to show off to people online. Or, hey, Razer just sent you a brand new keyboard and mouse that's Destiny themed. Or, hey, you just got a PlayStation 4 from Sony. When you're getting that kind of stuff online, it's really hard to stay unbiased. It's hard to be unbiased in your content and not be willing to give that company criticism, because they're hand and foot. They're giving you stuff. They're giving you access to exclusive content. You're getting these unboxing things to show off to your subscribers. And I can understand how that could influence you. I really do. It's one of the reasons I'm glad that YouTube for me is a side hobby. It's just I have a real job I work during the week, and I kind of do this for fun. And because of that, I can be a little bit more objective than most of the major YouTubers, because in a way they all love to claim they're not paid by Activision, they're not paid by Bungie, but when you're constantly brought out to a game studio and given access to exclusive content no one else is going to have, when you're constantly receiving these packages in the mail and these $2,000 computers to show off and these other benefits, yes, in a way you are indirectly getting paid and influenced by those companies. So, especially when those companies have a reputation of cutting you off if you aren't always positive about it. The other thing I will say too with some of these YouTubers, and you're actually starting to see a few of the more popular ones coming around to the fact that Destiny 2 is not such a great game. If you watch the content they do with other video games, you'll notice a change in their voice and their inflection. They get more positive. I'm not going to say any names, but at one of my few YouTubers, Destiny YouTubers I still watch, I was watching him do a review of another game that just came out that was something he'd played in the past, and he was just all excited and positive, and you could tell there was this difference in the way he felt about it versus the way he came off when he was doing his Destiny videos, when you could kind of tell he was almost trying really hard to not say anything bad about the game because he was afraid Bungie or Activision might see it and might have a problem with it. That right there tells you a lot about how they're influenced to talk about Destiny. But I wanted to keep this short, and it's kind of blossomed into a ramble, so I'm going to cut the video off here, guys. Just was really interested in kind of seeing your thoughts on this. Something, like I said, I wanted to talk about for a long time, and I feel like this always positive attitude and the way that these major Destiny YouTubers are just unwilling to offer any criticism about Destiny, it's just bad for the long-term development of the game, because when a developer gets complacent and they don't have to make any changes because they have such a large fan base who will white knight for them and a large group of YouTubers that will white knight for them, you're really never going to see anything change with the structure of the game. We've seen it with Call of Duty. Destiny itself has never been much more than kind of a mediocre looter shooter, although it did get pretty good towards the end of year 3 in the first game, and I guess, you know, that's one of the rare times a few of the Destiny YouTubers were starting to criticize Bungie for how stagnant the game was getting. But again, we're back to Destiny 2, and we've fallen back into this complacency with the people who mainly review and give videos on the game. So again, we're kind of back to square one. And like I said before, Bungie doesn't have to change really any of their practices because people continue to buy the game. They continue to buy the microtransactions. They continue to feed into it. And they just really refuse to criticize the game. So anyways, guys, love to hear your thoughts down below. Feel free to share them in the comments. We'll be getting back into the Warframe series again soon, so don't think I'm jumping back on Destiny content, because really I don't have much fun making Destiny content. In fact, that's why you see me playing the original Destiny in the background, because I didn't feel like even jumping on Destiny 2, because I haven't even touched it since it came out. It's been just such a boring disappointment of a game. Just a mediocre experience in general, so not seeing too much there. Anyways, hope you guys are having a great weekend. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you again next time.